Hey guys, it's been a minute since I've done a YouTube video, so I wanted to hop on and do a fall video and also check off some boxes for some questions, comments, and some items on my to-do list. So we are going to be working with a 14-inch grapevine today. This is a custom order going for an apartment, and the instructions for this custom piece are the recipient loves purple, orange, ranunculus, peonies, and fall. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna wrap all those up and make a beautiful personalized wreath for her. Another question that I had received was, how do we build a wreath for a storm door? So an apartment door tends to be a little smaller. So we're gonna be using a 14-inch wreath instead of an 18-inch, which is my standard. And we're gonna apply the same ideas about how we're gonna place this to make it on the smaller side. For storm doors, generally the rule of thumb is we have a 5-inch gap in between. If it's an older home, it might be as little as 3 inches. So, I mean, a grapevine alone is probably 2 inches. So we have to just be thoughtful about what flowers we're putting on there and how far they're gonna stick out. So I already prepped this wreath by cleaning out the leaves. And what's important about cleaning out the leaves before you start is this stuff is all it's all decomposing. So it doesn't matter how much glue you put on it. That was like such a magical moment. I don't know what's wrong with me. Anyways, so yeah, it doesn't matter how much glue you attach to it. If it's something that's gonna fall out, it's not gonna stay. So you don't have to make it perfect, but on the side that you know you're gonna glue on, you definitely wanna take the time to clean it out. So I use scissors, I use my wire cutters. For the most part though, I use my hands because sometimes it's just easier to really get in there. And you know, the way these wreaths come are so inconsistent. Some are beautiful and already cleaned out, and some are just like a nightmare and there's mysterious feathers in there. So you never know what you're gonna get. All right, so to start, we are going, oh, I wanted to show you my glue pan because I love it. So this is my glue pan. I do have a wireless shore bonder glue gun, but when I'm designing, I use my glue pan. So this thing is filled with pellets that melts, and what happens is it heats up and it's kind of at like a honey or a syrupy consistency, and that's when it's ready. I will say, if you get burned with this, it really hurts, so you just have to be cautious, and I do not wear flip-flops when I'm designing using that glue pan because that would absolutely kill. Okay, so the first thing I like to do with the wreath is, once I've established what side I'm going to be gluing on, and for this one I'm going to be gluing on, let's see, I'm going to be gluing on this side. We're making a crescent wreath, which is a one-sided wreath. And what I want is, I want the best looking part to show. It's just like we all have our best angle for photos. Our wreaths have their best angles too. So once we've identified what part we're going to be designing on, we're going to take a really thick piece of the grapevine, and we're going to take this wire. It's known as jute wire or grapevine wire. And the beauty of this is that it is kind of seamless. You know, the mechanics are hidden, which is what we want. We want everything to look as natural as possible. So we use this. I just twisted the ends, and then I just kind of spin this around, and now I have a loop. Because this loop disappears so easily, I always like to just mark it with a little ribbon. So I'm using this cute little leaf ribbon, and I'm just gonna mark it. And this is kind of like the North Star. So when I'm designing, it keeps me a little bit focused on, how I'm gonna be laying things out, okay? So let's get into it. All right, the first thing I like to do when I'm designing is establish the parameters of how wide, how high up, how deep I want this to go. So for that, I typically use foliage. In the spring, ficus is my go-to. For fall, this is, kind of similar in shape a little bit. So we're gonna go with this. Now, when you get pieces, yes, could you just stick one whole one on? You absolutely could. But you wanna manipulate your materials so that you get the most out of them. So for this, I'm actually gonna cut this into 3 pieces, okay? So I'm gonna have one branch, And then this branch is just going to be too long for this wreath, so I'm going to cut that off. And then I'm going to save this because I think we can probably use that. Okay. So I'm going to repeat that. We're going to cut one off. Cut this one in half. And then have this little nubbin guy. All right. I know you've seen enough of my face, so let's take a look at our wreath. All right. So to start, again, we're going to be setting parameters. So I'm going to take my 2 longer pieces, and I'm going to start by putting one in the top corner here. All right. And then I'm going to repeat. I am really OCD, so there's a good chance if you see me do something once, I'm going to do it twice. And one of the nice benefits of that is, one, my house is always clean. But relating to wreaths, it keeps the balance. So it keeps the balance with materials and with the colors. And you'll notice it because it kind of makes it more harmonious. Okay? So far we have our top, our bottom. Now I want to see how wide this is going to go. Now this is a smaller wreath, so I don't want to set it too far out. So I'm going to put this a lot shorter than I would on an 18-inch wreath. Okay? Next step, you guessed it, we're going to repeat that step. And if you have leaves in the way, if it's going to interfere with you putting them in, just pull them off and discard them. I hate to waste stuff, but if it's going to actually make your design process more difficult, then I think it just makes sense to just pull it. All right, so we're going to be creating kind of like a nice little crown with these orange leaves. I'm going to put one here. Okay, I'm going to snip one more. And if you've seen other videos, this is my recipe. So if you kind of figure out what your recipe is and what steps kind of keep you in line to design, it makes it a lot easier. Right now we're doing fall workshops, and because I've been making that same wreath over and over again, if I had to, I could recreate it in probably, 20 minutes, start to finish. So the more you practice one particular technique, the better you're going to get and the easier it's going to be. Okay. So we're going to start off with this hydrangea. So for the question about storm doors, normally I would leave this stem out like this far because I like everything big and extra. But for the purpose of this, because we're going for a smaller, more compact look, we are going to lay this flush against our grapevine base. Okay, so we're going to be trimming the stem at the end, but you can see here, we're not making this too deep. And if I wanted to be super thorough and measure it, if this was an order for a storm door, I would need to be really cautious. This comes out to right at 5 inches, okay? So this is as far out as anything is going to go. So our guidelines are purple, ranunculus, and fall. So we're going to start off with this purple peony. And I'm going to put it in the top corner. I'm going to leave space. And actually, that reminds me, one of these is super crushed. So we're gonna steam it. I'm going to show you guys how to steam. You may already be doing this, but if not, this is a nice trick to freshen up your wreath. Or if you get some product that you get in the mail and it's crushed, you don't necessarily need to return it. I would take a crack at steaming it. So this thing's going to heat up, but I got this off of Amazon. I think it was like $25. Okay. So while that's heating up, we're going to keep going. So looking for our purple flowers. Okay, we're going to use this one because this does not look right. Like this does not have that light airy shape that it should. So we're going to put this one in next. Here I am When I'm working on the bottom half of the wreath, it's actually better to slide it upward because it's more likely to catch. And when I'm designing at the top, I slide it down. All right, so we are going to put 2 more peonies in. And sometimes I like to work in like groups of florals, so it might be easier for me to get all the peonies in and then move on to my next bush of flowers, okay? Now, the way flowers grow in nature is they don't grow like up and down super straight. Oops. They, let me see. They tilt towards the sun. Do I have no water in here? All right, let me just put water in this. Can't steam without water. That's how you know I just do these things live without really thinking them through. All right, so like I was saying, I like to do things like possibly 1 bush at a time to set a pattern up. All right, so first I'm doing the peonies. Now, I always like something to be really like nicely trailing at the end, so I'm going to keep these heads tilted. And okay, our steam is starting to come out. Okay, so here we go. So look how smushed this is. And look what this is going to do to it. It's just like an instant pick-me-up. You might even say it's like the Botox for flowers. So look at that. She's 30 again. All right, so we're going to do that. I'm just going to go around and give these all a little steam. I also steam things at the beginning of every season because if I've had something in storage, when it's off season, I store them in clear plastic bags. So they're going to get a little smushed, but at least they're not getting, you know, dusty or dirty. So I always give them a quick steam as well, and it just kind of brings them back to life, okay? So this bloom is like 100 times better. So just taking that extra step pays off. All right, Mama's favorite flower for this, Mama's the recipient, are ranunculus. So we are going to pepper some of these in, and I absolutely love these colors. And in general, this is just a very high quality ranunculus. So when you're working with materials, I love the ones where the leaves slide up. You do need to be cautious. I had some very strong women in our workshops this week, and they just pop the heads right off. So you want to slide the leaves up, but just, you know, give it a little space, like an inch before the head. There's no reason to go all the way up because then it could be damaged. All these powerful women. All right, so now I'm going to go in with my pattern. So if I put one in between them, and it's a large ranunculus, I am going to do the same below. Here. And let's do a small one, kind of creating a little shape around our hydrangea. Okay, and because I'm doing this on the fly, I pulled a whole bunch of materials because I didn't really know what direction I was going to go in, and I still don't. So over here, my workbench is a disaster. It always is if I'm busy. This is a good sign. So we have to start looking at what we want to use that isn't going to totally throw off the color, but we want to do a little bit more than just purple and orange. So I think we will try and introduce these leaves as well. And these are kind of like a maroon, okay? Now, I think these leaves are beautiful. I think these berries, when I see things like this, I'm like, oh, there's no way this is going to stand up to rain. Like, it's already falling apart just from being in a store. So my recommendation is to snip them, because all it takes is for one thing to look really unnatural to kind of take down your design, to take down the natural look. So for me, I have other berries that I'm going to use that are much better quality. So I'm using this just for the leaves. So again, manipulate the materials to get exactly what you want out of them. Now I'm going to break this branch down as well. So it was 1 piece and it's going to end up being 5. Okay. All right, so let's see how this is gonna look. I have a good feeling, but let's see, because you're doing it right with me live, so may or may not work. Oh, no, I'm sorry, I love it. I love it. So this is adding a bit of dimension. It's giving it that fall vibe. And these are kind of a mix between purple and red, so I think that we're still checking the boxes on the design request. And they're maple leaves, so that's just very fall in itself. Okay. So I'm going to just keep repeating where I'm placing them. Nice and balanced. And let's see, put one up top and one on the bottom. There already is one there. So, okay, just down here. Again, we're sliding upward when we're working on the lower half of our wreath. Okay, so we're looking good, but we're missing something. So let's see what some options are. Gosh, I pulled a lot of orange. Let's try some of these. So if I'm really unsure about if a flower is going to work, I might clip one off and just not glue it and put it in to see. Let's see. I like that. Okay. Let me know what you think. Let me know if these color choices were what you would do, or how you would do a fall wreath with purple, orange, peonies, and ranunculus. All right, so I'm not going to use a ton of these, but we are going to definitely have to go in with some texture, because I think right now this wreath is pretty plain if we don't spice it up. I don't know how spicy we can make it, because I want it to obviously fit the custom request, but we need some texture. We need some movement going on in here. All right, so I'm just going throughout. You know, we don't want maple leaves to be the star. They're just kind of they should be in the background. So let's make sure that just because they're covered with maple leaves that we're not done. Okay, so I'm going to put this one here. This guy does not want to cooperate. You are not being helpful. All right, so I think this part of the grapevine is tough, and then I also put a lot of glue in it, so it's just giving me a bit of a run for my money, but I will not give up. There we go. So I have been doing, like I said, fall workshops locally, and I was so excited because somebody that I interact with on social media and on YouTube was actually at my workshop, and it was so fun being able to design with her in person. So Lynn, if you are watching, hello. I'd like to say Lynn did an amazing job on her wreath, and if you go to my social media page, you will see all the wreaths that people made. They all came out gorgeous. All right, so I'm going to take a bit of a step back because I know something's off here. And this is kind of like at the end of workshops, I like judge things up, and the best way to figure out what the balance, where the imbalance is to really step back. So now that I've taken a step back, I see that there's a lot more fullness down here than there is up top. So that tells me where the area is that I need to target. So I am going to take one of these red leaves. And we're going to put it up top. So for this, one of the pieces slid off. And I'm going to try and put it back on. Okay, so I was able to slide this back on. See how it came off? Just because you slide it back on does not make it secure. Whenever I do this, I just want to be thorough. So I'm going to add just like a little drop of glue on it. Because it's no good if it gets to our customer and it falls off there. So again, just like a little touch of glue just to keep it in place. Now we start again. Okay. We go up top. So. I feel like we need details. Details. What do we want to use? How about some little pops of burgundy and some of these cream daisies? We'll start here. I'm going to slide the leaves up and snip these. I'd love to know what people have been working on. If you've ever tried some of the recipes I've shared, the wreath recipes. I'm always very interested in what other people are doing because I just think there's so many different ways to express being creative. So I'd love to hear about it. All right, so this is gonna break up this, you know, I feel like it's very solid colored here. So we're going to put one of these in the top corner. Yeah, see, it needed something. It's too, I'm not going to say monochromatic, but just too blocked, I think. Like color blocked. I'm going to repeat that down here. Okay. Okay, we're on to something. I am going to, let's see. I feel like I want some more here. Yeah, I do. Okay. Let me grab one more of these bushes. If you're like me, you probably have a ridiculous amount of craft supplies on hand, and I think it's just because we get so excited and so inspired by all the beautiful things that sometimes we are not thinking with our head or our wallet, we're thinking with our heart. All right, so I'm going to have this be kind of the trailing part. I always like the end to kind of narrow itself down. So using these lilies are going to help. Oh, not lilies, daisies. Okay. And then I'm feeling like I need to go back in because I kind of got away from the parameter I set, which is totally fine. You know, it's a suggestion. It's not a hard rule. So I am going to extend the parameter that I was using. All right. And if I have the choice between two pieces and one is, you know, a little more full or a little bit more aesthetically pleasing, I'm always going to use that up top. And the reason is because that's where people's eye are naturally going to go before looking at the bottom of your wreath. So I'm going to put this in, and that is way too much. So I'm going to have to put this sucker in deep. No, this is just way too much. All right, bigger is not always better. We're going to thin this out quite a bit. I'm just going to use a tiny piece. Okay. Just a little touch. Same for the bottom. I don't want to overwhelm it. So I'm just going to use this little piece. This is where sometimes it's something you maybe would have discarded, but as long as you have enough stem to really get it secured with glue, I would hold on to it because there's a good chance that you'll be able to find a place for it. Or at least wait until you're totally done your design. So, okay. Again, we're going to take a step back, and I can see that there's some bare areas here, and there's just, in general, I'm still feeling like there's not enough texture. So I pulled a couple different berries. Pulled some of this too. So let's start with the berries because this is gonna break up the contrast. All right, and I like these. They have like a good coating to them. I like the leaves. So we'll go in with these. I'm gonna pull off any leaves that would interfere with me sliding this into the grapevine. Here we go. So you may notice that I always start at the top corner, and that's just muscle memory. So when you figure out your recipe, you'll probably find that you're doing things like systematically. All right, bottom corner. Yeah, I would love to know if people have like a special recipe that they love. So this crescent wreath and this recipe is my favorite. It's not necessarily my favorite design, but it's one that I feel like comes together pretty effortlessly. Okay. We always want something nicely trailing, and all these materials are super malleable. I am not a delicate creature, so if I was, I don't think I'd survive, but these materials you can absolutely bend to your will. All right, that is looking so much better already. As I toot my own horn. Okay. A little bit so we're matching the top. All right, and then I want to break some up. I call this like the disruptors, and this is when you're going to kind of make a break in between these flowers. You think about how they would grow in nature, and they would not grow side by side by side. So they would have weeds, they would have vines, they would have plants growing in between one another. So that's kind of the idea here, is to break things up to give it more of that natural garden feel. All right. Let's see. Where do we want to start? Above the hydrangea. I'm going to repeat that and go below. Sticking out too far. This part of the grapevine is super tight. And if you're really struggling, you might want to just make sure you can find a spot before you place this. All right, what else we got? What else do we have? I am going to, if you look around my craft room, like you can see there's just stuff like everywhere. So I have a lot of things to choose from, so why don't I choose something? All right, I put a lot of my textured pieces over here. And I know this is messy, so don't judge me. I put a lot of pieces of texture in this basket, and that way if I'm kind of unsure of something or I'm a little stuck, I know where to go for some inspiration. I also have a basket of just berries and thistles. Ooh, thistles, that's what we need. Let's see. What color thistles do we want? All right, how about these? Or do we want something lighter? I'm gonna go with red. You let me know what you would have done. I just feel like anything else dark is just gonna make it a little too dark. So I'll cut some of this up. There you go. All right, now we're gonna go in also using these as disruptors. We're gonna have these poking out in like unexpected places. And I love this. So when I think of where the best texture comes from, it's like when someone else would say I'm done, you're like, nope, there's more work to do. There's more details that we have to accomplish. So that's what I think makes something really special when designing. Sure, you hear my 4 dogs going off. My guess is Amazon's here. Yeah, this one is giving me a hard time. All right, so I'm actually gonna search for the hole before gumming this up anymore. So again, and these things can be bent. They can kind of go in between the flowers, like however you want them to. I have like a tickle in my throat. I apologize. All right. Let's see. Something out there. And then we're going to match that. And have this facing downward. Like so. And then I think just 2 more pops of this, top and bottom, are going to look lovely. So even though we've made this a compact wreath, it still has a lot of fullness to it, and it's not going to get squashed in between your storm door. And there are actually command hooks that allow you to hang your wreaths on your exterior door, but I would just be super cautious in reading the instructions on how much weight it could hold. You know, for my front door, my go-to is a 5-pound command hook, but I don't know what you could put on a glass door, so read carefully. All right. All right, taking a step back. What am I missing? Yeah. I feel like we're kind of missing a little something up top, so I'm going to add another ranunculus. See, because has, you know, hot glue that drips, I like to just try and keep it over, you know, there's a tray here on my easel. And I know people have asked where I get my easels, and they're always super random. I find them at HomeSense, Home Goods. They're usually on clearance in the furniture department, so I would keep an eye out. And then I have a friend who's an engineer, and he helps me with putting quality, you know, shelving on. And if you're not friends with an engineer, you should be, because they're just so helpful. They're the most helpful friends you'll ever have. So he has fixed both of my easels, made them so they can travel for workshops. And I'm too lazy to scrape all the glue off, and he always does it. He's a bit of a perfectionist. Probably need to be. All right, what do we think? Do we want some red? Yeah. Let's do some red. And we'll repeat that. Yep, and that was really needed for down here, actually, because this is really just leaves. Okay, so I think that we are done, almost. The next step we're gonna do is we're gonna take a look at the back. So the back of this is a total mess because all the stems have come through. So for the next step, we want to clean this off. Because if we give somebody a wreath like this, it's going to scratch their door. So let's see if I can get this a little closer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and I'm going to snip off all of these stems. Here. There would be nothing worse than giving someone a housewarming gift that damaged their front door. So this is a necessary step. So as I'm cutting these, the parts that I'm cutting are the parts that were in glue. So that tells me that this might not be as secure. I want to make sure everything is as secure as possible. I think I'd probably go overboard. But in New England, our weather is super finicky, and I don't want to take my wreath in and out for storms. So I build everything so that they can stay outside and it's not covered or anything. Right now I have out all the mums and corn stalks and pumpkins. I don't know if you guys have done yours yet, but oh my gosh, it makes me so happy when I pull in. All right, so I see some drips of glue here. That's something that we have to pull off. And if it's something like you really can't get off, so like this one's kind of a mess, I would just pull it off, because really for the amount of work you're going to take, this is in the background anyways, so it doesn't really need that much of your attention. All right, now we're going to come in with moss and glue. So the moss is just, you know, the preserved bags of moss. And then we're going to use my glue gun. And what I'm going to do is everywhere that I just clipped, I am going to hit with another round of glue. We'll do a little at a time. And then carefully, because we do not want our fingers in this glue, I'm just going to kind of lay some of this on and tap the moss, not tapping the glue. This is going to be an excess amount of moss. You'll probably pull some off, but this is the safest way to not burn yourself. Okay, I'm going to go in again. Glue this. All right. There we go. All right, now if you see any glue hairs, you can either pull them off with your hands. That's totally fine. That can be a bit of work. Or you can take a warm hair dryer. So like, I just use, you know, a regular hair dryer, and I would just go around. So I go around the back of the wreath, and then I flip it around and I go through it one more time. Okay. So this is our fall wreath. That is a birthday gift that can go in between a storm door, and it was done with a blank background. So I really hope you guys like it. Let me know what you think, and let me know if there's anything else you'd like to see.